Okay, so today's video, I have a sewing machine. Now this particular machine I picked up from my old employer, and well, it's been sitting here for a couple of weeks. I've been meaning to do a video for a while, but I haven't really had the chance until now, and still the light's not even perfect for me, which is just yeah. Anyway, with that said, what I have here is an old Janome that's been floating around for a while. And honestly, I feel very lucky getting a hold of this one because of how good it is. The fact it didn't cost me anything. But in today's video, my intention is to show you what to look for when picking up a used sewing machine. Now this is only a very brief guide, and I can't state this enough, but if you're intending to pick up a sewing machine to learn how to use one, really make sure you do some classes first. Don't just watch some YouTube videos. Get used to using an actual machine before going out and trying to pick up one, especially a used one. I tried that myself and it just threw me a blunder. Turns out a lot of the mistakes I was making wasn't because the machine was faulty, because I didn't know what I was doing. So don't fall into that mistake. But with that said, what I have here is a Janome. And I'm going to take its cover off. So you get to see that part. Now, these I purchased separately, so they're not a part of this video, but I will be showing them later on. I just need to take that out. All right, so as you can see, I have an XL23. Let's pretend, for instance, that you've come across this machine and you're really curious about really wanting to get it dirty as F. Does that matter? No. Because we have microfiber cloths, at which point you can just give it a quick wipe over with. You probably want to use something a little better, but yeah, this is only going to get light dust off. So an example would be the back end of this. That just gets the surface dust off. So, what are some important... Whoa, that's nasty. So let's say you got this machine in front of you and you're unfamiliar. Look, you're probably not going to come across... You might come across a Janome, you might come across something else. There are tons out there of sewing machines you could potentially come across. As I said at the beginning, just first off, try to figure out how to use a sewing. Get courses on how to use sewing machines. Maybe take at least enough until you feel comfortable using one. But let's just pretend you come across this and you're thinking about buying it. What are things you should look for? Well, first off, when I do this, I look at the throat plate here. Now, I'll tip it forward. See if you can see it. Should be all right. Now, on here, I'd be looking around this area. And when I take a look at this now, I think I see a bit of rust. So I don't know if that was there before, but yeah, it's a little rusty. Too worried about that? No, not really. I'll try to buff it out, or I can get a replacement throat plate. They are available. What you're looking for is strikes. So around where the needle, which is here, goes down, around that area, what you're looking for are small little holes or small little dents in the metal. What that would mean is the previous owner didn't know how to sew properly and they probably think the machine's stupid and doesn't work, at which point, sucks to be them. Or the needle's been installed incorrectly and it's, well, striking the throat plate, which is something easy to correct. Still, whenever you come across a new a used machine and you get it, replace the needle. That's the first thing you should toss out because you don't know its state. Another thing you might find with a sewing machine is a sample stitch. That'll usually be a bit of plastic underneath the foot. That'll show you how the stitches look. This one doesn't have it, so it doesn't matter, but that's the example. Once you've gone through all that, does it have the foot pedal, which is here? Now, you need to take a careful look at this. Mine has it's been tag and tested, so since its retest date is the 9th to the 16th, so this should be still fine. Still look at the cable and see, this one's probably an excellent example of one that can be rewired easily. I mean, it shouldn't be that difficult to undo. Well, you've got a screw here, and a licensed electrician should be able to rewire this without that much difficulty. But what you're looking for is a stiff cable with pieces that have coming off or have cracked off, and you can see the inner cords. If you see that, yeah, don't buy it as your first machine, because that is not going to work. And getting a replacement foot pedal, that can be a nightmare. So yes, check that it has a foot pedal, check that there aren't any cracks, nothing's been fixed in it, that it's still soft. I mean, this is quite malleable, it still feels good. The machine really isn't that old considering, so this should still be perfectly fine to operate. Don't be afraid to wind the sewing machine to check how it feels. It should have a nice smooth action. And as we can tell, this is set to a zigzag pattern. So I'm going to pop that to 0. And that's actually a stitch. So I'll set that to 0. That feels better. Put the stitch length to 2. There we go. Now, once you've done that, what you want to look for is the manual, which I have here. Some asshole decided to put holes in it, which pisses me off. Now, you may be able to find them online. A lot of the time, the actual manuals for the machines are free. However, getting a hold of the service manual probably isn't necessary for most people, but if you're like myself and you really want to tinker, getting a hold of this is important. Luckily, Janome Australia, there is a website where you can buy, well, you can buy the official, you can buy the service manuals. I spent $10 and I both got the service manual and also the parts list, which, I mean, this is just invaluable. It really is. Now, if you saw my review of my brother machine, well, here's its service manual. The biggest problem I have is the service manual is confidential, which means the public aren't supposed to have this. No, the only people who are supposed to have this are the authorized service personnel. So someone who owns a sewing machine repair shop, or an official brother repair agent, which just ticks me off, to be honest. But I took the original instruction booklet, corrected a lot of the mistakes that were in there, well, where the holes were, and I have this. So if you have the manual, great. That makes it a lot easier for you. What you want to do is go through the manual itself, and it should tell you how to run maintenance on the machines. All sewing machines should explain this. Those that, any machine that doesn't, that gets a bit questionable. You might have to read carefully and check through the index or the contents page. I mean, this one here at the back has, well, it's not the French part, troubleshooting, which you would want to actually take a look at. So this machine, the only really reference it gives to doing any kind of maintenance is under here, under the throat plate and where the bobbin is. Other than that, this book just covers all the instructions about how to use it. Definitely give this at least a quick squeeze, because your machine, you may have learnt on, say, for instance, a Brother, and get this model as your own machine. Well, the Brother and this is going to be a little bit different. If you're not familiar or used to working with different sewing machines, it's going to blow your mind, especially if you're trying to thread it and it doesn't work. If you thread it incorrectly, well, you're going to have a problem. All right. So other things you need to look for are the bobbins and the feet. There's no foot on this one. Well, okay. Generally, a machine this type, you'll find stuff in this slip out part, at which point we do have some goodies in here. So I'm going to take it off and I'm going to open it up. Whoops. Now, we have the screwdrivers, which just one fell down. So we've got screwdriver. We've got buttonhole attachment, which is what I understand this machine was purchased for. We have another screwdriver. And then we have a cluster amount of different types of bobbins. This is a problem. For a lot of people, you might think, oh, you know, sweet, lots of different bobbins. It's like, no. No. Sewing machines are mechanical instruments. They are designed to work a specific way. And when you start screwing with it, without knowing what you're doing, things can break. And that means using the right bobbins. So what you'd have to do is get yourself original ones, which for me wasn't that difficult. And then you need to check the size, also the height. Now, an example of how this machine works. The thread will slide over the bobbin. Now, if there is anything on top of that bobbin that is going to catch, well, that bobbin's going to be a problem, because you're going to get differences in tension, and tension's extremely important with sewing machines, and you're going to get inconsistent stitches. That's going to drive you mental trying to fix it, if you actually care. Now, these two bobbins are probably examples of what you'd find more traditional sewers doing, where they will put on some thread, use it for a bit, decide they need to put on another color, and then they'll just keep adding to it constantly, which ends up giving you a ton of, well, problematic bobbins. Now, I will say this again, which I didn't say before, sorry. Bobbins, you only use the right bobbin in the right machine. In this case, I wouldn't be using these metal ones because they're not designed for it. So the only foot attachment we found in here was in this container. Always look. Now, sometimes you might find something at the back, but this one doesn't have that. So I'm going to close that up. Now, this machine This machine has a different place. It also has up here. And taking a look, we can see that all these feet are here. That foot's there. You have a space here. Turns out the only thing that went in this space here was a set of needles, so nothing to replace. And then there was this little extra leg. Now that little extra leg I could not find. So I went and bought myself one, which ended up being this. Now this will in fact fit in here. It may not be 100% the same one, however, for my uses it should be just fine. And luckily this diagram does show us the different type of feet and the stitches that you need. So say if you want to do straight stitch, you need that foot. You want to do this weird stitch here, you need that foot. So if you're missing any of these feet, then you know, and to make it easy, well, you know you can't do the stitch properly. And luckily, because these are all labelled, I can tell you that this is the foot that I need, foot A. At which point, now the lever is this black thing here, which you probably can't see, goes up. There, and it's on. I haven't really had a chance to use this machine yet. So there, now we have that set up properly. And I can bring this forward. Now I don't have all the spool pin, all of these. I'm not sure if oh no, there's a second one in here as well. This is a secondary, don't want to lose that. So depending on the type of thread you're using, this is your spool pin. You can have it set up here, or you can have this one here. What that allows you to do is just simply have it closed and it goes through. But then you're going to want to check this every once in a while, otherwise you'll run out of thread and not realize it. Yeesh. Okay, so I've said that. Now if you do have the opportunity to, it's always well worth to be able to fire up the sewing machine, which I will try to do now as an example. Okay, so that machine is on, and I'm going to push the foot pedal down, which I'll do up here. So it's well worth to point out that this is an electronic machine, computerized, as it says here. So it doesn't matter how hard I push the foot pedal down, it's just going to go at the one rate. You might be thinking, well, guess what? Don't be worried, just look. Speed control. Let's put that up to 50%. Further down I go, the faster it gets. And its fastest will be 50% because this is set to 50%. So I get a high. That's the fastest the machine will run at. And I should be able to adjust this on the fly, like so. Now that's very useful if you're still learning the machine. Alright, so I actually haven't had to play with this before, but that's an actual LED, some kind of light in there. Huh. Oh look, 13 straight stitch. Okay. And before. Now another thing to check out, to stop it, make sure the needle is up as high as it can be. And then back tack. And it should still work. Now if you've got some fabric to be able to play around with, that's great. But let's just say you get the needle here. Well, basic machines don't have the ability to control the needle. This one does. That's not good. Alright, so that button doesn't work, which means I might have to take a closer look at this machine. And this does smell like something burning, so I am getting a little concerned with it. Might just be the lamp though. The room I'm in is quite hot. Also, probably not a good idea to just start playing with stuff unless you've read the manual, otherwise you might break something. So I'll just fire this up again. And I will bring the needle up to its highest position. Bring it back to zigzag. So 1 is buttonhole, 2 is zigzag. Probably the wrong setting, but anyway, turn her off. So despite this machine not being run for a very long time, it still seems to be in good condition. Okay, so you can't take that out. All right. Seems like it's missing a screwdriver, which is something I'll have to order. Now these little cover plates, if yours is broken, definitely look at getting a replacement. There are two places where you can get them from. Well, actually no, there's all kinds of places. If you can, get it from your local sewing supplier, a sewing store that does repairs. But don't sort of go in there and pester them too much about, oh, you know, if this, that, or if you're trying to fix these by yourself, ask basic questions, but don't try to grill them for every single thing you need to know. It's not fair on them, and you're supposed to be learning. If you do want your machine fixed by them, just take it in and pay for it. Don't argue about it. Honestly, it just... yeah, that sort of stuff gets old quick. You also make yourself look bad. However, if you are doing something with your sewing machine and for some reason it just completely stops working, or you're trying to fix it and you break it in some way that you're not sure it's completely screwed up, go in there and admit that to them. Tell them what you did. That way, notes can be taken. And the person who's working on the machine can go, oh, okay, well, when the person was working, this happened. And it helps them. Or if you go in there and you say, oh, you know, it just stopped working, blah, blah, blah. And they look at it and they can tell that you've been in there mucking around, well, it's going to make you look bad. Not to mention, you don't need to get any, there's no reason to cause drama. There really isn't. Just be upfront. Anyway, so I am happy that I have this machine. It definitely needs a bit of work. I mean, this thing's dirty as anything. Oh, the sign actually does come off. So, in this particular machine, it has a light, which is here. You can get yourself an LED one if you like, but they tend to be poor quality, at least the ones I've seen. So you really should be careful with that. And because I see a bit of dust here, I'm going to clean that off. I'm going to have to make a note that this machine needs a bit more of a sensitive clean. And maybe I can do a video about it. Anywho, what to look for when buying a sewing machine. Oh, final note with the foot pedals. The reason why I tell you you're going to make sure you have one of these is a smart one. These things cost an arse load. To get a complete one, I've seen them go for like $200. Not just for this machine, but for machines in general. The cost of a foot pedal versus just buying a brand new machine, it's a complete joke. I mean, if you fine, you go out and you spend like, say, $60 on a sewing machine without a foot pedal, but the foot pedal, the only way to get it is going to end up costing you like $150. You're better off buying a new machine. You really are. So, very important that you make sure you have the foot pedal. Should have said that during the video. And like I said, be careful about the bobbins. Make sure you get the right bobbins for your machine, because if you don't, it's going to screw everything up. And if you're new and learning about this sort of stuff, the last thing you need is a defective machine. So if you're going out and just buying from somebody or getting one from someone that you know or understand to have very little information or know little about sewing, machines specifically, it's a huge risk. If you've got a shop nearby or that you can get access to that can sell you a used machine, give you warranty, teach you how to use it, great. At least you'll learn the quick things about how to get it to work. Whereas if you just go pick up some piece of junk from an op shop, which is what I did, it just drove me nuts. So yeah, a bit of a rant, but This is important. With all that said, I'm going to say I'm happy about this machine. It's what I wanted, which is something I have to work on a bit, which is great. I mean, getting rid of that rust is going to be one of two things, either rust removal or just replace the throat plate, which hopefully they still sell them because... Anyway, yibbity yibbita.